the Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
Hi, I'm glad to see you here today. I know we have a little competition because there are all sorts of protests going on. Not that the news is covering the protests, but there are a lot of protests going on today. So I think maybe many of our regular audience people are at the protests, and I think we need to protest. I'm actually not good enough condition to protest. It's too bad. It'd be helpful if I could. But anyway, I'm there in spirit, and I'm here with you guys. So being here with poets is the next best thing to being out there protesting. Anyway, I want to say that you know that the Distinguished Poets Series and all the prizes that we give and all the other programs that we do are funded by the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, and unfortunately also by the National Endowment for the Arts, which is in the firing line right now, on the firing line. I don't know what's going to happen with it. And so we're looking for people to increase their donations to the Poetry Center. We've had some very loyal people who have given us money, and some who left us money in their wills. But you know, it takes a lot of money to run the number of programs that we're running, including lots of programs in the public schools and a lot of contests. I'm quite concerned about funding because I feel that National Endowment for the Humanities just was cut terrifically, and all the funding for science grants, the fact that they killed all the Department of Education. I am really frightened for the first time in my life. I don't frighten that easily, but this frightens me because it seems like we've moved into a kind of authoritarian state and where freedom of speech is not protected. I will never get the image of that woman being stopped by those 4 masked men near MIT. I'll never get her out of my head because you know, she's there, and all of a sudden they're surrounding her, and they're all dressed in black, and they have black masks on, and she must have practically gotten her pants. I would have. And then they shove her in a car, and she doesn't know who they are. It was horrible. Anyway, I want to say that none of these programs would be possible without our individual donors and benefactors, the State Council on the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Passaic County Community College, which pays a lot of our expenses for the building, the heating, secretarial. All that is paid for by Passaic County Community College, and the support of Dr. Stephen Rose, who's the president of the college and who loves the Poetry Center and is encouraging of every once in a while I get a new idea and I put it into place and it becomes a big idea. It starts out a little idea and then it blows up into this big idea, taking way more hours than I thought it was going to take. But it's wonderful to see the program continue to grow, considering that I started it 45 years ago, which is why I look so old. And Of course I do. I know I do. Anyway, I love the Paterson Poetry Prize, and I love being able to give books to honor poetry. And the poets I love are poets who speak directly from the heart to other people and describing what their lives are like and what it means to be human. Anyway, I think you're going to be delighted by these poets and by their readings. And I'm grateful you're here and grateful to be able to offer this kind of variety. We also will have people sign up for the open reading, and we'll ask you, if you sign up for the open reading, to put in your town and county and because they want to make sure that we're really reaching people outside of Passaic County. The people in the magazine come from all over the world. The people in the contest come from all over the world. The people who take the workshops come from everywhere. Yeah, I had this series of mature adult workshops. That another idea I got about 10 or 11 years ago, and it has been so popular. I've now had to split it to 2 days of workshops because I can't, it was just getting too big, too many people. So I opened it to another session, and that has been wonderful too. I love this whole thing. It's going to be very hard for me to say that R word. You know, it's going to be hard to let go. I'm not easy. It's not easy for me to let go. So I am trying to keep going as long as I can. Anyway, today I'm very pleased to welcome Afaa Weaver. He was the winner of the Paterson Prize for Paterson Book Award and from the Poetry Center this year. And Afaa, did you win another time, a very long time ago? Or were you the judge?
I was a judge in 97.
Right, you were a judge, okay. That was when I still paid judges and didn't just judge, I judged myself. Afaa M. Weaver, the most recent collection of poetry is A Fire in the Hills. His plays include Beria. His awards include the Wallace Stevens, Kingsley Tufts, and St. Botolph 219 distinguished artists. Artists and Writers Association, as well as medals from the Beijing Writers Association and Taiwan's Artists and Writers Association. Afaa is a Guggenheim Fellow, a Chancellor of the Academy of American Poets, Professor Emeritus at Simmons University, and a guest MFA faculty at Sarah Lawrence. His papers are held in the Howard Gotlieb Center at Boston University. With his wife, Kristen Skedgell, Afaa lives in the mid-Hudson Valley of New York. And I wanted to say about Afaa that I remember him reading for me probably 40 years ago. And in the middle of the reading, he started to sing. And it was so amazing. It was so amazing. And I just fell in love with him right then and there. And he's been back to read a lot for us and to do workshops for us. So I'm thrilled to have you back and have you read for us. Afaa is a poet of the heart, of honesty, of language that is not trying to build a screen between people. And it's the kind of poetry that I love. Let's welcome Afaa Michael Weaver.
Maria, I remember you called me once, must have been 1992. I was living in Philly, and you were working on Unsettling America. And that was before I changed my name. He said, Michael, I need you to do something for me. And I said, what's that, Maria? He said, I need you to write some poems about what it feels like to be black. I'm like, okay, Maria, I'll work on it.
You did it. He wrote the most wonderful poems. Wonderful, wonderful.
And I'm still working on it.
That's okay. It's life's work.
It certainly is, Maria. And thank you so much for this recognition. It's been a long time we've known each other, Maria. Long time. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Good to see you all. How long should I read, Maria? I don't have my watch.
Half an hour.
Half an hour?
Yeah.
That's a long time, Maria.
Well, 25 minutes if you don't want.
Okay. So I'm out of Baltimore, and as they say, I'm going to read from A Fire in the Hills just today. This is the winner, co-winner of the prize. And I grew up in East Baltimore mostly. We moved there when I was 6 from the West Side. And this is called My First Gun. Not even a week out of prison, he's sticking the thing in my face, 6-inch barrel, 22 or 38, ages I just might not make. Minding my business is minding his in our world, the top of the hill, high point of the valley, Milton Avenue, our grave. This is a world of folk will name with cameras. The Corner, and later The Wire, sad stories of children not yet born, our children, cherubs. A gun changes things, changes your mind. Not even a week out of prison, he's sticking a thing in my face, and I count the chambers. 6 chambers, 6 the sum of 2 times sacred 3. 3 the number of parts of God or a liquor bottle, the cap, the head, the body, a shallow torso to break. A gun changes things, changes your black mind, makes you want to talk back to the one pointing in your face. But dumb guns don't talk, they wait. When they speak in thunder, the loud tap on the body to demand that it open itself up, edges of black skin screaming, falling away.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I'm smiling because I think about where this poem takes place. It's in my neighborhood in Baltimore on Milton Avenue. I call it the demilitarized zone or the middle of the war zone, whatever. And it's also a block there I call the killing block, where I saw the first part of a murder in progress. So, shotgun. If the church had been open, the preacher standing on the corner, the Bible in his hands, the sun tamed down by old ladies with eyes pinned down on the block watching over us. The block more a place full of life insured by the sound of birds, that it might not have been the way it was, the way they were 2 young men, one running from the other. If there had been a hand on a mama's hip with a finger in the sky, shifting the stars around to show these children a real power. If the church had been open that afternoon and not the middle of that shotgun broke down with fingers not much more than a child loading shells, picking it back up, pointing at a back, running away, running to hide, running. If the church had been open, a man-child might have lived. So, 1968. Now, we talk about the dangers of black-on-black crime, and we talk about the violence, kind of violent nature of the society in which we live. I'm looking at 2 cities this time. That one was Baltimore, this one is Chicago, South Side. Around the 1990s when I knew it, I worked in a theater project for a few years. A few years on the South Side. Blues in 5/4, the violence in Chicago. In movies about the end of our civilization, toys fill the broken spaces of cities, flipping over in streets where children are all hoodlums, big kids painting themselves in neon colors, while the women laugh, following the men into a love of madness. Still shots show emptiness, tearing the eyes of the last of us who grew to be old, the ones the hoodlums prop up in shadows, throwing garbage at us, taping open our eyes, forcing us to study the dead in photos torn from books and burned down libraries. Chicago used to be Sundays at Gladys's Luncheonette, where church folk came and ate collard greens and chicken after the sermons that rolled out in black churches, sparkling tapestries of words from preachers' mouths, prayer books, tongues from Tell Me, Alabama, and Walk On, Mississippi. Now light has left us, the sun blocked out by shreds of what history becomes when apathy shreds it, becoming a name the bad children give themselves as they laugh and threaten each other while we starve for the laughter we were used to before the end came. blues in 5/4. Blah, blah, dee, da, ba, ba, ba. There you go. A little bit of song. Blah, blah, dee, da, 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 da. So, I want to read a poem for a woman who lost her life in the hands of the police. And this is an epistolary poem. Louisville, Kentucky, for Breonna Taylor. I wrote this poem for her several years ago as she was pregnant, as a matter of fact. The police came and looked to search the house, and they were looking for her partner. And she was in there with him, and one officer, to use that word, walked behind the apartment building and just started firing up into the window. She was killed. Her partner survived. So this was written to her in the next dimension. Midnight air in Louisville for Breonna Taylor. Dear Breonna, how many times I ask, how many times have I chased the thought of writing to you, of catching the poem where it cannot leave, of knocking open the door to a grief we all hold, our hearts full of questions. We leave our houses to work, to look for what we need to live, or what we need to make the pain go away. And your voice rises, oh, hell to the no. No, he didn't. Satan, get behind me, whatever the hell you think you are. I imagine that in leaving all of us, you said, I am done. I am let out into the world, breath I took in from it, breath that I give back in love. May I see you in flight, filling the space beyond clouds and stars, where there is no need of sun or moon, where a grand city lives in prophecies beaten by the wheels of history, where you are not invisible to ancestors who saw these long roads down through time to this one night in Louisville. Bright angel, luminescence, woman who saved lives in emergency rooms, invocation of heaven's law, living song riding the eternal dawn. These titles I summon from license given by eternal mysteries to hold you. Fly now in the woven air of the saints. To speak a little to the issue of war, the Vietnam War, in Vietnam they call it the American War, took place when I was a teenager. And the 60s were the time of my adolescence. I was 13 in 1964, that November. And in 1970, I turned 19. 1970, I volunteered for the military. And I just want to say that when I think about veterans, I think about myself as a child, actually, who did not know what he was doing. I had no sense of American foreign policy. You know, I spend a lot of times these days listening to and watching Jeffrey Sachs and a few others, learning much more about America's foreign policy and the whole military-industrial complex and what a war economy actually does. So when I think of veterans, I think of young people who haven't had enough time to really understand what life's about. And they're out there in uniform. And they get sent places to do ungodly things. And it's a real tragedy. So I want to read that poem, my poem about Vietnam, because I could have gotten deployed, but I didn't. I was in an intelligence unit. I was a cook in the intelligence unit. And Army Security Agency. And our job, had we been deployed, would have been to give soldiers in the field information about where things were, where to go, where not to go, etc. And my job would have been to cook for them and in warfare, you kill the cooks first. You kill the food supply, you know. Cooks have to go. And so I didn't know that, you know. I was 18 years old. It's not the safest job out there. When I think of Vietnam, thinking of what it is, thinking of what is new, how nothing gets beyond being already done. I stare at a decimated apple seed, some unnamed rascal having made off with the real fruit. My last hope for a spring that is real, not the juggernaut of artificial corn. I am perplexed, thinking perplexity is the door to writing something new, a brave metaphor, or the last teenage dream I had in East Baltimore before the naive wish to be thought worthwhile by the grand machine to become a soldier. Then comes the sober sense of dogs roaming streets where there's only a blank starvation and the awful stench of having eaten the planet where we live. All reminds me this poem must resist all things that kill, things that add to war's breath. The life that smothers and gluts us makes it tough to see how love grows through a bitter humility, the barely audible whisper of people too wise to believe the lies we Americans tell ourselves about who Americans are and what belongs to us. The Civil War did not, as we know, or some of us think, myself being one of them, didn't settle all the issues at all. It only moved them down the line into the future, and they keep moving and animating themselves and getting re-enlivened. And I went to Antietam one day, and Antietam is west of Baltimore, and so many people died out there that there was no place to bury them. They just buried them in the field. And so it's a very eerie thing for me, at least, to go and visit a battlefield like that. The Civil War, the more I learned about the Civil War, the more I understood America. At the end of the war, the South did not give up at all. They moved west, and they moved into the Northwest where no one could tell them what to do. And the American conservative movement gets its grounding in that movement from the South to the North, the Northwest territories. And they said the South shall rise again. Right? And so in 1877, the Reconstruction was upended by a coalition of Northerners and Southerners in Congress. And when the Civil Rights Movement, as we refer to it in the 1950s, actually the Civil Rights Movement is an ongoing process. It has to be revived. As I remember it growing up, I would ask myself as a young teenager, why are we being punished for asking what we're supposed to have? You know, and the core of that resentment and hatred and pain that lives on is part of the inheritance of the Civil War. There are Southerners who have been handed down the grief of coming home from the war to a plantation that was barren and empty. Their whole way of life taken away from them. That resentment and grief was handed down from generation to generation. So, and it's grounded, or it's founded on a firm belief in the inferiority of Black people, among other things. This Civil War yet unresolved at Antietam. The River Ganges is on NPR, all upside the fence, running past the bumper of the car I have forgotten. Rough rails laid in X's in places, stiff, stoic, the river on the other side of the world where souls remember instead of forgetting. Folk washing lives like dirty clothes while I creep around corners where the rifles and the screaming songs of the dead lie in the grass to be awakened again. Some southern way sings in me, this is the ground I know. For a soldier, there is a last day written in a diary we learn in training, one thing at a time. Assemble, disassemble, take the carriage apart in 15 seconds, apply a steady hand to the wound when packs are too far away, hold the blood when it wants to go, sing the prayer song your mother taught you when she was about to make the journey across the river. Stonewall Jackson said, let us lie up under the tree for a while and stop aching. I got a mind to get out of the car and walk all over this killing field, but the air conditioner is like Jack Daniels with Coke in the evenings. Southern drink. On a porch, letting the air slide across the fields, a porch like the one I see now. My barefoot and kind uncle sleeping off the life of sharecroppers' sons, the wealth of white sand caking around their ankles, spotted with rain. And I know the justice of these fields, the way corn raises its throat to a god who went somewhere and sat down to rest his nerves. And as someone who has said that, well, put it this way, I call myself a Taoist, but when you're raised as a Southern Baptist, that's a long journey. You know? My spiritual practice, my sitting meditation is Taoist, and I'm one of my teacher's disciples, but I also subscribe to bi-weekly lectures by a woman who's a retired professor of Eastern Studies and Religion. And I said to her, I was raised as a Southern Baptist, and she said, that's a long way to travel. To Taoism, something that is kind of hard to explain. So I try to imagine things that are just on the other side of me and my beliefs. So I met a group of poets from Wisconsin who are conservative Republicans. They're not white supremacist extremists, but they're solid conservative Republican poets. And they said to me, one of the problems with the civil rights movement is they took away a question every child should ask, which is, what do you want to be when you grow up? They went from that to critical analysis. And so that's a good question to ask, because you ask young black children today, what do you want to be when you grow up? Snoop Dogg? I hope not, but it's an important question. So they also asked me to write a book of poetry about the history of African Americans that could be used for children. At first they wanted a poem. And they said, can you do it by tomorrow? I'm like, wait a minute,
You just wait, I'll get my penny poem machine.
So I took my time and I wrote 13 poems. And my friend Enzo Surin published them as a little chapbook called A Hard Summation. And when I was writing these poems, I was like, oh boy, are they gonna like this or not? They loved the book. They loved it. And not only that, they said, we think this should be distributed in all the schools in the country. I'm like, that's interesting. And we are friends. I can call them, ask for a favor. They'll do it if they can. I know them. So I looked at the other side of slavery, at the men who served as sailors. The history of slavery is just incredibly complicated. To be a sailor in that time was like you were nothing, when the slavers died at sea. The dread came over the edge of the deep with the lightning of the sky, the yellow peak into time, and when the ship came without him, the dread became the terror of having a heart skin peeled back from love, the way columns and clumps of people were tucked away in the ships. Out in the midst of waters, history's maker in a black lace dress, tucking them by the 200 or 300 onto shelves, touching them with some mystic caretaking when their heads rolled with the whim of oceans, tapping the tiny black feet of children to wake their hearts when it seemed they were sliding off, the way the bodies of sailor husbands hit the water in angles, then plunked down to look for the bottom of things. where stories end themselves on other sides of the eyes of fish with gel lips. There is this hardness to life. Now, I'm going to close, and there's a lot I could read, but I'm going to read a poem that involves my wife because she's the one that asked me to put this manuscript together. Kristen's mother was a novelist and an editor in New York in the 70s and 60s. She worked at E.P. Dutton, and her novels are still on sale. And Kristen is an author. She's a really good editor, kind of harsh at times, but really good. And she said, pull these poems, I pulled these poems together. Some of them were written when I was younger, and some when I was much more recently, of course. She said, you should do this, and so there you have it. Maria recognized what Kristen saw. Thank you, Maria. So I'm going to close with a poem that involves my wife, although she says, this is not a love poem. I want a love poem. Okay. Ephemera. Each morning I sit in silence. Time slides, changes in my heart, a moss-covered cabin where its fire wakes me to a camaraderie of life, of light. My wife waking upstairs to walk to her window to pray, to gaze outward at the pasture where Wappinger people eyed white men making laws to own people and the land. Art rules this old house, its rough rafters set in earth, as the colony became a state. And Poughkeepsie forgot its own wonder, a gathering of reeds on banks of a river Hudson believed would take him to China. His breath unnoticed these days by the hummingbirds that visit our door, sounds of their wings like my fingers tapping my mother's empty Tupperware bowl. With cake batter, a thin film she let me lick only when I was good. The taste, something I let leave as I sit, waiting to be aware. Woke, as some say. I imagine the sun, its fire, its electricity, waiting for us when we have lived all we can live, hoped all we can hope. Some of us snatched away by the virus, corona wrath of a world disturbed, surprised as we are by nature's decisions. We refuse to surrender, to let go of what kills us when we try to control all of what we cannot see. Our house is now inside me. It is me, I am it. My bowels and spine its forgotten birth. My thinning skeleton, now its heavy rafters. My emptiness, its emptiness. My fullness, its fullness, were ideas of the breath. Our two minds held still by the fastening of it all, hook and joint, sinew and bone. Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you. It was a pleasure working with the 5 poets this morning. A couple of them are here. That was really fun. Thank you. And congratulations to all the other readers, the traveler from the North Shore, Jennifer, thank you. Congratulations. Maria, you have a heart of gold.
So do you, Michael. Excuse me, Afaa. You changed your name on me.
Yeah, well, that's what I always say. I didn't give you that name. So, you do have a heart of gold.
Thank you, darling.
I made it down without falling. Isn't that good? All right.
That's a nice, strong cane.
Yeah, from Texas.
Is it
Yeah.
handmade?
Yeah, they do things like that down there. They don't know how to be minimal.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Our next honorable mention or writer is Jennifer Franklin, and she's the author of 3 poetry collections, including It Seems God Shaped Your House for 4-Way Books, a finalist for the Paterson Prize and Judy Suck Award. Her work has been commissioned by the Metropolitan Museum and published in American Poetry Review, the Paterson Review, a Poem a Day on Poets.org, and Poetry Society of America's Poetry in Motion. She won a Pulitzer Prize, a NIFA grant, and a CRCF award. Her new manuscript, A Fire in Her Brain, is about Virginia Woolf, Lucia Joyce, and Sylvia Plath. She teaches at Manhattanville MFA program, Poets House, The Frost Break, 24 Pearl Street, and her online manuscript revision workshops. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to give you such a soft introduction, but my voice appears to have vanished. Thank you, Jennifer. And Jennifer also, for many years, ran the Hudson, what was the name of the Hudson Valley?
Yes, I used to run the Hudson Valley Writers Center in Sleepy
For
Hollow.
a long time.
Yeah, 10 years. Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you so much for selecting If Some God Shakes Your House for a finalist for the Paterson Prize. It meant a lot to me to receive that letter from you in the mail, and it's an honor to read with all the readers today. Thank you for your wonderful reading, Afaa. It was really wonderful. So I'm going to read some poems from If Some God Shakes Your House, and then I'll read one new poem from my new manuscript in progress, A Fire in Her Brain. And this book is a book in 3 parts woven together. A third of the poems are political prose poems. A third of them are memento mori sonnets. And the final third is a selection of persona poems in the voice of a contemporary Antigone. And instead of being told by the world not to bury her brother, she's told by the world not to devote herself to her disabled child. So those are the 3 sections that I'll read some of each of them today. This one is As Antigone. As Antigone, I buried the body at night, but I knew I would still be caught. The sky watched a harder shade of blue as I knelt above your lifeless body. After I held dirt in my curved palms, I couldn't return home to the yellow sheets or islet canopy. It didn't happen how they described it, doing the deed that doomed me to death. It wasn't fast, over before I could stop myself. It was deliberate. I heard music. A deep lament led me. I felt water, but my mouth remained dry. It held the words anger and apple. You thought I was going to say soil and love. The wall of the city is high. Climbing, I scrape my knees. When I see blood, I believe I'm still alive. I know I will die. The next one is one of the prose poems. These were all written during the lead up to and then during the first Trump administration. And looming above this whole collection is the knowledge that Roe versus Wade is probably going to be overturned, and then it was. Of course, a lot of these are during the pandemic. February. Our long coats are all that separate us from the cold. Halfway around the world, the sky opens to put out wildfires over the carcasses of burned marsupials. We wait for the subway, for the train. My daughter waits for her short yellow bus that arrives each morning with one sobbing boy. Politicians preen and posture. The air is damp with acquittal. We bend our heads, but not in prayer. Our palms hold small backlit tablets that promise information or escape. Miles north, a student paints a swastika in my old dorm. Another student covers it with a star. Only the dog is calm, sleeping in a circle in her clean fleece bed. Orwell wrote, "There was truth and there was untruth. And if you clung to the truth even against the whole world, you were not mad." I try to put my daughter to sleep on time in her new room. As I read the familiar incantations, flowers climb up the lamp to the ceiling. All the animals have escaped the zoo. I want the story to end there, all of them tucked into the corners of the zookeeper's room, breathing their heavy eucalyptus breath across the night, their fur shining in the moonlight through the blinds. And this one is one of the sonnets. Some of you may have read about or seen Gus, the polar bear who lived in the Central Park Zoo. And there were a lot of articles written about him that he suffered from depression, which is no wonder because he was in a very small tank and all he could do was swim back and forth each day. And so they got a trainer and they tried to help him with behavioral therapy, but that didn't do it. So this is called Memento Mori, Central Park Polar Bear. After reading that he died, I am relieved. For 27 years, he swam laps all day, slicing the water. His 700 pounds, muscle, tendon, yellowing fur, black eyes, all turned to ash. The week you were diagnosed, I pushed your stroller 33 blocks to the zoo. You recognized him from your board book and flapped your arms to imitate his strokes. Unseasonably warm for October, I stood stunned inside my black sweater embroidered with flowers of forgetfulness. Watching in front of his small tank, was I the only one who saw how sad it was that he barreled in backstrokes of figure eights? His giant paws slashed the cloudy water, knowing he would never get anywhere, despite how hard he tried. 11 years later, you still run back and forth in our living room, with or without music, babbling your indecipherable song. Your swimmer's shoulders cut the empty air all night as you make patterns on the threadbare rug. And this is another of the Memento Mori. On the day of the Capitol riots on January 6th, and all those people were pardoned now, as you know, the New York Times had an article about the last 2 white rhinos, and you can read that article if you're interested in them. They're still alive. They're trying to breed them with other strains of rhinos. And this is called Memento Mori, Northern White Rhinos. They are gray, big as boulders, gentle as the grass they spend the whole day grazing. The only 2 left of their kind, mother and daughter, they live under armed guard in a Kenyan sanctuary after spending their life caged in a Czech zoo. Unaware of their doom, they pass their last days eating and napping. Each time they lower their heavy bodies down to rest, they sleep, tusks touching. Oh, love, what do any of us have but this? Thank you. This one is Memento Mori, Apple Orchard. In the gold light of early October, we climb the orchard hills, searching empty trees for apples. The boy at the gate tells us Ida Red, Rome, Crispin, and Surprise are all ripe and ready for our hands. We walk and walk. The dog investigates every fallen apple with her frantic nose. Even as we savor this autumn sunlight of our beginning, headlines remind us of what is lost. Families have picked the trees clean, leaving plastic bottles and paper napkins blowing like white flags, instead of the fragrant apples on the ground reminding me of my mother's baking. I catch the smell of decay. I catch the smell of decay as we walk through so many rows of stubby trees that we cannot find our way back to the car. We do not say what we're thinking. If we leave without a single apple, it might mean what we have done to the earth cannot be undone. The children who grow up on this imperiled planet will not remember pulling the russet fruit from the branches to bite into its sweet flesh. We see boys throw bruised apples at each other. Still children, they already know what is damaged becomes a weapon. As we pull away, we watch them run the worn paths. Their masks fall as they bend to collect the blemished apples to fill their empty bags. And I'm going to read 3 more poems. Thank you. So the book was already finished and already turned into my editor when Roe versus Wade was finally overturned. And I said to them, I really need to write a poem about this having happened, because that was, the whole book was leading up to that. So they did let me write that poem and add it to the book. And it's another prose poem. It's called June 24th, 2022. That alabaster hospital room. For 22 years, I've tried to crawl my way out. Its antiseptic smells and white walls still taunt me as I read today's headlines and think of all the women and girls now stripped by the state of their right to choose. I begged them, first my mother, then my husband, then together. I cried, hair matted and dirty from vomiting for 23 days. 7 weeks pregnant, I pleaded with them not to force me to have the baby, as if my body already knew how sick she was and how the architecture of my life would be destroyed. Instead of helping me, my husband ordered a psych consult. He was a doctor, so he convinced the attending I was hysterical and did not know my own mind. Anyone with a mind knows this has always been about control. Nothing is enough. I offer to help women travel here and bring them to clinics, write postcards to swing states, my body a sanctuary and a shrine. Because I love my daughter more than myself, there are some decisions I can never come back from. Dickinson wrote, to attempt to speak of what has been would be impossible. Abyss has no biographer. My daughter crumbles like a rag doll when she seizes, her heavy body limp in my arms. I watch us from above, our forced and permanent pieta. Can you see the truth? The child isn't the one who is dead. And 2 more poems. Thank you. This is the last poem in the book. It's another Antigone poem. And then I'll read, the last poem will be a new one from the new book. As Antigone, I still want to believe I can find some way to fix you. That if I go back to the beginning, retrace the disaster with the savant detective's obsession, I could uncover a cure, the smartest expert, some successful drug. Better yet, I want the pediatrician to give you a different diagnosis. I want to go back to the walk home, past restaurants and playgrounds, autumnal light catching all the auburn in your hair. I want to go back to the moment your father left us outside the cafe consider handing you to him, all 47 pounds of you in your gingham pants and hot pink cardigan, little Dalmatians decorating the pockets, and walk away without looking back. But I would never have left, and I won't now. One way or another, you will be the end of me, inadvertent brute force, vector of virus, constant caretaking, your heavy body forcing my remission's abrupt end. I know what's waiting, as certain as cloth hung to hold my scarred neck. I will not walk away. The moment the nurse pressed your splotched body into my arms, your needs fixed my fate. Constantly confused, your jagged voice requests Christmas songs all spring. You shove words of grace into my dry throat, and I sing. I don't need a bottle of pills, white as sleep, to silence me. Every ersatz saint knows endless sacrifice is suicide. For 20 years, I have been disappearing. Touch me. I am not even here. And the last poem I'm going to read today, and thank you again to Maria for this honor, is a poem that the Metropolitan Museum commissioned for their Friedrich exhibit. And they said I could choose any painting I wanted. So I picked this one of the monk standing at the sea. It's called Monk by the Sea by Friedrich. That exhibit is open till May 11th if you want to go see it. And I wrote this poem right before the inauguration on January 20th of Trump for his second term. And so it was after the election, before the inauguration. We knew how bad it was going to be, but we didn't know how fast it was going to be. So it's called Now Beacon, Now See, and it has the title, the epigraph, and the last line are from Samuel Beckett. Now beacon, now see. Much of my life has ebbed away before this shivering expanse to the sound of waves in storm and calm and the claws of the surf. Samuel Beckett. If you believed anything, you believed you had nothing but time. Time for words, both to take them in and to expel them, order them to fit the form you had faith you would find. Now you stand at the edge of the sea, facing the storm that is coming. Seagulls fly above the waves as the sky darkens. After hearing the news, but before knowing what awaits, you exist between despair and hope. As you wander alone on the beach in winter, facing the abyss, it is impossible to tell if it is night or day, winter or spring, the end or the beginning of the end. If you believe anything, you believe you have nothing. No time, no words, no time for words. You stand at the sea before the storm. The only sounds are the cries of birds and the waves beating the beach. There are no signs to reveal how this will end. The storm is coming, but you do not turn around and retreat. You will watch it gather and approach. You will wait, statue still, betraying nothing. You always loved the beach in winter, the solitude of the sand unsullied by footprints, the wind piercing your skin, persistent reminder that you are alive. You see the horizon endless against lowering clouds, the sliver of sky that, even with the looming storm, remains blue, and what you hear, the distant cymbals. There is still time, still time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maria. And congratulations, Afaa, and to all the other readers. Congratulations. I'm looking forward to hearing you read. And congratulations to all of the people who were out marching today. But as Marcia said to me, poetry too is a form of resistance. So let's all keep resisting as much as we can.
Our next reader is Jared Harél. hope I'm saying your name correctly. His most recent poetry collection, Let Our Bodies Change the Subject, from the University of Nebraska Press, 2023, was selected by Kwame George as the winner of the Prairie Schooner Roz Shoemaker Book Prize and named a finalist for the National Jewish Book Award and the Paterson Poetry Prize. Awarded the Stanley Tunis Moyles Prize for American Poetry Review, as well as the William Matthews Prize for Ashford Poetry Review. Jared teaches writing, plays drums, coaches basketball, and lives with his family in Westchester, New York. I've said with Jared, he graduated from Binghamton University, and that his poems are very rooted, very clear, very heartfelt, and heartwarming. Let's welcome Jared.
Hey everybody, how we doing? Thanks so much, Maria. An honor to read here with Afa, Jennifer, and Joe, and to be in Paterson on this kind of rainy afternoon. So I'm going to read some books from my collection, Let Our Bodies Change the Subject. And I thought I'd start with a Binghamton poem. We have a Binghamton connection here in the room, so I'll start there. That's true. That is true. So when I lived on Washington Street in Binghamton, I was right above this Red Cross blood donation center. And so I lived there by myself, and I would go down there every few months. I think the most you were allowed to donate was every 3 months. So I would donate blood every 3 months down there and get the snacks and the juices and all those things. And so this is a poem that is about that experience. Side note, I also lived across from a bank that would always tell you the date, the time, and the weather. And I remember if the weather got below 0, it would just go dash, dash. And there was 3 weeks straight of dash, dash. And then one day I woke up and there was a 2, and I was like, 2, all right. Anyways, that has nothing to do with this poem, but Plastic Butterflies. Lonely and a little bored, I used to donate blood every 8 weeks at the Red Cross across the street from our studio apartment. Eyes skyward, arms shot straight, I'd sigh as the butterfly settled on my skin, its wings drawn to a vein in my forearm, a thin river, ghost blue. And then warmth, like an oven turned low, a slow kindling beneath dark winter clothes. Afterward, I'd pocket Oreos, fig bars, a few extra juice boxes for later that night, yet leave feeling lighter, like I'd done something no one could diminish. I still donate here downstate, but last spring, after the butterflies sting, I blacked out in a synagogue basement, my soaked back on a gurney as the plastic sack swelled. Nowadays, I can't tell who I'm meant to help or how to help, or if anything really helps anymore. Though I guess that's me feeling lazy and drained while up north between 2 frozen rivers, a version of my youth re-enters that waiting room beside a rusted diner and a discount department store, lies back and believes he has so much more to give. Thanks, y'all. So this is a collection that's kind of knee-deep in parenthood. I have 2 children who show up in the collection quite a lot, to their tremendous delight. Like I said earlier, we'll see if that continues into their teenage years or not. But for now, they're happy to be here, so I'm happy they're happy. This is a poem that features the 2 of them and has a tiny amount of singing in it. for which I apologize in advance. It's called All I've Ever Wanted. The almond milk has turned. Flecks of foul snow slink in slow liquid. Not the discovery I had angled for this morning, but as my dad likes to sing like some Jewish Mick Jagger, you can't always get what you want, which is just what I croon to my 2 children, driving them up the wall, because of course all they want is to get what they want. A 5th scoop of gelato, to play Minecraft till their eyeballs pixelate in their skulls. What humbling work to haul kids toward thoughtful. The kind in humankind like a foreign language on a stubborn tongue. Yet even as a toddler, my son would refuse a lollipop if his sister didn't get one, still plucks an extra sticker to gift her after school. And hell, my daughter can't ride an elevator without making a new friend or some lady's day by praising her earrings, her sweater or purse. My point about discovery has escaped me by now, though I know the old chorus for thwarted desire. My cereal will be dry, coffee taken black. I will try against hope to be better than myself, which is all I've ever wanted and everything I need. Thank you. I'm actually going to read a poem from the book I haven't read yet. I've done a ton of readings in the last year and a half with this book, but I haven't read this one yet. I was in Dayton, Ohio, and I was with a friend, and we went to the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force, which is an interesting museum, but there was this one room that was the Cold War room, and right when you walk in, there's this big bomb, and right printed on it in military writing, it says bomb. And that struck me as so odd that they needed to sort of say what it was. And this poem came out of that experience. Takeaways. That the military felt it necessary to write bomb on its thermonuclear hydrogen bomb might be the greatest argument for never building one. Here it is. Tidy print on a giant green pill, the way I write my son's name inside the collar of his winter coat, or how my daughter pilots a pencil between parallel lines. Takeaways, she dubs them, the act of subtraction. I've learned this country starts us young. Were they nervous, some cadets, fresh from a jog, might think it a scuba tank, their long-promised fridge. I made pancakes yesterday while my son laid waste to our Tupperware cabinet and his sister dragged graphite through farmhouse cows, wiping out swing sets and dolphins and clowns. There are this many left, she told me, beaming. Dear Bomb, I can't pretend you aren't impressive. The science behind you, your streamlined design, this impulse to eliminate. Name it. Say mine. Thank you. So one thing that becoming a parent did was it sort of changed the way I saw my own parents as people who were young and trying their best and sort of winging it. So in addition to having poems about my kids, there's poems kind of about my parents through this new lens for me. And this poem has, it's me, my son, and my mom are all in this poem. And it takes place, has anybody ever been to Adventureland on Long Island? All right, so this is an Adventureland poem. It's exactly what the name sounds like. You know, old school amusement park. The poem's called Behind the Painted Guardrail. My mom and I take my son to Adventureland to ride every conceivable vehicle in identical slow circles. We watch as the fire truck keeps pace with a rocket ship, an old buggy with the Formula One racer. The park is pretty dead, so she lets him stay on, this teenage employee with a bright red visor and a look so vacant it quiets the soul. As a kid, I once proclaimed, when I get older, I want to work at Adventureland, to which my mother swiftly replied, when you get older, you want to own Adventureland. Turns out I did neither. But that exchange persists in the annals of family history as a testament to ambition and a healthy entrepreneurial spirit. In truth, my mother knew little about me, but loved both the me I was and wasn't, a devotion so bright I'd vanish in its glow. My son knows only left turns. He spins and keeps spinning in his blue police cruiser before seizing a bulldozer 6 feet away. My mom and I wave from behind the painted guardrail as he sways back and forth, steering and honking like he owns the place. The teenager yawns, flips a rusty switch. I want to tell my mother more than I can say. Thank you. I'm going to read 3 more poems. I'll read, so Jennifer Franklin, who just read so wonderfully, helped put together an anthology called Braving the Body, which is a wonderful anthology and one you should definitely seek out. And I have a poem in it, and so I thought I'd read the poem from that. So a few years ago, my brother thought it would be a good idea to play basketball in low top Converse, and he tore his Achilles tendon, which was, if you know anybody who's done that, it's a long and lengthy recovery. And this is a poem that came out of that experience. I found myself both researching the injury and also, by way of Google, researching Achilles, the story as well. Achilles. Oh, and I make reference to NBA 2K, which is a basketball video game, which we did a lot during his recovery. Achilles. My brother came down with a defensive rebound in a body prized and trained against time. Much like Achilles believed he was invincible until Paris's arrow torpedoed his heel. Who plunges into battle without proper footwear? Nearly 40, my brother wore low tops, heard the hard pop of tendon as he fell. Here on the sofa, his left leg elevated beside prescription painkillers and a bottle of blue Gatorade, I strain to stay casual, keep things upbeat. I say, did you hear there's one blockbuster left in America? Or Achilles actually died of his wound, so by most accounts, you're doing really well. When that fails to take, I challenge my brother in NBA 2K. We orchestrate fadeaways, no-look alley-oops, pixels so intuitive, it feels almost true. But the truth is, I don't know what to do for him. When his best friend Patroclus was killed in battle, Achilles came out of retirement to avenge his death, slaughtered Hector, then dragged his corpse across Troy. I buy my brother crosswords and sour gummy worms, sit through whatever movie he wants to see as we nurse an ache, both sudden and ancient. These bodies that hold us, this watching them go. Thanks so much. I'm going to read 2 more poems. So this is a poem I wrote in the early days of 2016, which was the first administration. Crazy to say that. And you might have remembered that Leonard Cohen, the musician, passed away that same week, which struck me as solid timing on his part. Anyways, the poem is titled after his final album, which is called You Want It Darker. You want it darker. The day after the election, Leonard Cohen is dead, and my eye gets infected, and my daughter flies around the living room, refusing to put on underwear. I can barely lift my head to see the smug sun pouring through the blinds, streaming its white spotlight on each darkened wall. I'm all in on grief and misery, all in shock and fuck this country, but it's still a day I don't teach, but strap my son into his Cheerio-encrusted stroller and wheel him to his baby taps dance class at the Y. That person really wants to go. We arrived to find the teacher red-eyed and wrecked, her t-shirt wrinkled, acoustic slung low. Only one other parent has bothered to show, her kid wailing beneath the moon glow of her phone. When it becomes clear no one else is coming, the teacher begins to strum and sing of fall, of piggies at market and monkeys in our beds. We squeeze our fingers into spinning fists and imagine we are buses peeling out of town. It all culminates in the world's saddest rendition of If You're Happy and You Know It, in which we're summoned to rise up off our multicolored mats, to clap and stomp and shout, hooray! Oh God, oh Leonard, who shed this life like a pinstripe suit, who saw this mess and chose not to stay, but slipped between the bricks of his tower of song. The sun is still out there, armored and gleaming. There is nothing I can say to make it stop. And I'll read one more poem. Thanks again for listening. It's a spring poem. Spring is right around the corner. And it's a poem about trying to love the world, even when, maybe especially when, the world is a really hard place to love. It's called Spring Crush. It's early spring on our walk home from school when my daughter tells me she's in love with the world. Last week it was a boy with small, serious eyes and a glorious bowl cut, but it seems she's moved on, falling for the world as she twirls in its sunlight and our shadows douse the concrete below. Should I aim to dissuade her? Must I explain this world will leave her for dust, leave her with the taste of rust on her tongue? But she smiles and slips fingers through mine, a sweetness not yet teased from her grip. Even those teens who pack the sidewalk with trendy sneakers and covert insecurities stop slapboxing, pause to let us pass. Nearly home, we spot blossoms burning indigo and pink. A whirl of two squirrels scrape up a tree. Better to take things slowly, I'd say, but the girl splits off and sprints the final block. Sunstruck, smitten, a whip of perfect limbs stretched to broken sky. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jared. Our next reader is Colleen Michaels, and she's the author of Prize Reel from Small Bites Press, 2023, and co-author along with Kevin Carey of the chapbook Olympus Heights from Lilly Poetry Review, 2023. She's the winner of the 2024 Ginsberg Poetry Award and 2024 recipient of a National Massachusetts Cultural Council grant for creative individuals. Her poems have been commissioned as installations from the Massachusetts Poetry Festival, the Peabody Essex Museum, and the Trustee of Reservations. She dressed the writing studio at Montserrat College of Art in Beverly, Massachusetts, where she began the Improbable Places Poetry Tour. I love that. Bringing poetry to unliked places like tattoo parlors, laundromats, airports, and swimming pools. Yes, in the pool. I gather everybody has to know how to swim. I will say about...
feet, so they're good. I mean, that's true.
I say about Colleen that her work is extremely moving, and she always makes me cry. I love her. Let's welcome Colleen Michaels.
Now you're going to make me cry. Thank you so much for this honor, and thank you so much for getting to hear you read today. It's been wonderful. I'll open. Okay. I haven't read in a bit, so it's exciting to be back on the stage. I'm going to start with So I do teach at a school of art, and I work in a writing studio, so I work with a lot of students on their papers one-on-one, and I'm struggling right now, I apologize. Maria, what is happening to me today?
Sometimes that happens to me. And I've been
It
doing
is
this
just
60
happening.
years at
It is
least.
just happening, so I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to start going into comedy routine in a moment. Okay, I'm just going to recover. This is my first time back. I've been having seizures since November, and they just stopped a few months ago. So I am back. I've got my place. We're going to start again. So my book is Prize Wheel, and it's based on how do you have small wins up against some big losses. So those are the poems that I'm writing about, and it's all in sections that are kind of terms that deal with what you might hear Carney say. Step right up and beat the house. And I actually was a Carney. It was one of my first jobs. So this is a poem that starts with that job. Fried dough trailer. At fall festivals, the apple-faced boys court the fried dough trailer, setting elbows on the counter with fisted dollars and thumbprint eyes, caught in the dough, immovable against the thin boys and farm girls emerging, flustering like maples in this season. And the majorettes refuse to wear their coats. Their oily faces are tinderbox for small towns, a bullhorn trill in each breath. Spinning and twirling, they retreat from their minders and skip church, dusting sweet sugar and cinnamon as they race to keep time. The mothers claim the sidewalk and guard their town parade, a barricade of folding chairs fortified by fleece vests. The seasons have been known to sneak up on them, and they won't be fooled by fried dough or false summer. As for this sweetened makeshift stand, a sampling, a taste is enough, they will say. And so I write too about my family. So in the sections of the book, there's I'm sort of looking at the relationship with my family, my parents, my child, my body, and then a lot of my work with my students and artists. This is one about my daughter. Getting and spending on Commercial Street. At the Provincetown Library's book sale, our daughter decides to part with her dollar. There is so much that she could get with it here on Commercial Street. Rubber ducks in buckets on stoops, rainbow beads and unicorn stickers, all manner of sugar blotting grease. Since morning, this dollar has been gaining value in her right front pocket, the bill now bullion, heavy as fudge weighted with walnuts. It picks up the wet palm momentum that money always gets, a duty-free frenzy, a sailor on leave. We steer her away from ships trapped in plastic bottles, talk her down from flip-flops that don't fit. We go to the library, right there in the middle of the street, so close to the head shop and the lobster pot. She heads for the basement, the annual book sale. Downstairs, it's strong smelling and cool, like Noxema on shoulders after a full day of sun. Her fingers, small crabs at low tide, walk the spines of the book. And I have to say, I'm so fortunate that I was asked to be a trustee on my local library board, and it is a tough time for all of us in the arts, and it is a tough time for librarians. So if you get a chance, go to your library and just high five a librarian. And I actually have love poems written to like bookmobile driver, which, does every town have a bookmobile, or is that only in, oh, it's an amazing, it's a giant van full of books, and they just travel around to get the books to people who can't get to the library. So it's a beautiful thing. I found the poem that threw me when I walked up here. You know that feeling when you have a plan and then you're like, you can't find the poem and you lose it? Well, you saw that in happening live. But here now I found it, so I'm gonna read it to you. So this poem would be a lot more enjoyable if you could see the title, but you'll all get it, and you'd be laughing if you could see it. But asking the Children's Hospital to correct their entrance sign. Now remember, I teach punctuation to people. So, Children's Hospital, Buffalo, New York. I lived across the street, much like you lived across the street from the blood bank. A small sickle, misplaced, should be a tickle in the throat. I could block the blemish from view, but already I've stopped hearing ambulances as they circle and park, stopped seeing through my kitchen window the pace of parents, even Amish in bonnets who travel with what they themselves cannot repair. I've given my parking spot to friends, their son's heart open. I gave the space to a student the semester she didn't deliver any essays and lost a baby. It does not salve this incision in the wrong place, sure as stone. And I'd like to believe that here it should matter, the belonging of one to the other in number and degree. So you should have seen the outfit I was going to wear today. So I have a lot, you've a nice one. It was polka dot, like the sleeve. And I think my husband, he said something like, well, if you want to give off like Renaissance court vibe, like that's good. So I was like, no, I'm gonna pull it back. But I had a lot of health issues, as I prefaced at the beginning, and had a lot of operations, a lot of metal in my body, can't get through a metal detector. So what I did to make myself happy, and what a lot of the book is about, is like, what do you do to make yourself happy when you kind of got a bad hand? Is I started sewing and making clothes and just wearing whatever the hell I wanted, and sort of being in a costume. So I started writing a lot of poems then that referenced clothing and fashion. So I'll read a few of those. This one's a sad one. I'll do sad and happy. So, whereby I am the broken wooden hem guide. Again in the dream of sewing notions, and already I hunger to be the silver teeth of a vintage separating zipper. Not this claptrap, a stiff contraption, my body. I'm sick of biting soundless velvet, crushing indigo pile, spitting out shantung. I do want to be a little tougher tonight, more useful than the buttonhole, showy with my stitches done up in silk floss. In this dream, I get tattoos, French seamed badass tissue paper biceps designed by an alteration genius who specializes in pockets and sailcloth. I sleep like a pincushion thrown in a drawer, so it cuts across the grain to now be this, broken. I want the sleep of satin, binding fleece, demand to be a baby on a stuffed red tomato. In the chase scene, every dream has one, I drop the small markings of 16th stitches from my cranky wooden frame, drop everything that holds me back, drop bastings to be redone in new red, ditch the remnants in a garment district alley. I dream, I wake, and I work like a miracle mouth, hinge oiled like a lace maker's hardened thumb. They'd never imagined me the maker of something so fine and whose job is no longer to let something down. So, and then, thank you. And I really do have an antique hem guide, which is very useful when you are hemming. And another one of my clothing poems is, this is another one that the daughter who was at the book sale in the Provincetown Library is in this poem is for her too. And she's now a nurse. She's all grown up, and she is embarrassed that she's in poems. So just so that you can see the future. This one particularly embarrasses her, but she also secretly loves it, I think. Yes, I think that shirt is perfect on you. The hydrangeas on either side of her, just watered, nodded in formal tribute to the miniature Karl Lagerfeld in front of them, their acidic blue heads embarrassed, as if they were matching gossips just caught, runway models heavied by the waiting around and eternal bright lights. I heard the soft earth of invitation in her voice, noted her sophisticated, slicked back hair, a small wet pup, silhouette of yet. Do you like this shirt? She asked, posing in our garden on the first day of 7th grade. I held the camera and I cropped those thirsty blooms. The shirt was cotton with cuffs and a collar, sure of itself, as if planting a foot and ready to roll a sleeve. I would have named her White Amaryllis in the dead of winter, had it been an offering in the seed packet of baby names, had I known of her hardiness or could have forecasted such a bloom. So thank you. I'll read two more. And one is, so this would have been my protest poem I would have read at the protest, so I'll read it today. It just comes right out of rage. So there it is. So American postpartum. He's grabbing the neighbor's kids' toys again, saying, mine, mine. I've run out of apology bottles of wine to send over. He is just a bad baby. So loud, his face ruddy from want, yet sallow from a deficiency. Why did they force him into my arms like this? I'm exhausted. I can't hold him. Who would ever hold a torch for him? This baby I did not agree to. This baby I explicitly said no thank you to. A red line cuts across the middle, gutted, and I woke up to this terrible baby. You tried bouncing back from veins like the Mississippi. This block-headed baby waddles up to every loose outlet in the room and puts its mouth to it like a nipple. I swear we tried to baby-proof the house, but the baby is just a bad egg. I know other babies can turn it around and stop peeing in your face. Baby needs to play king. Baby likes to play bang, bang, big truck game. Baby can't hold his head up. I don't think he even knows our language. My pits stink just thinking about the nightmare of school. I did not ask for this baby. He whines. If I don't ask the question with an upswing, who's my proud boy? He says again, I'm not proud of this baby. He needs the words to float around him like he's a big spaceman. I'm burning units down here on the floor. I need to get real shit done back at work. This baby I didn't want is sucking me dry, holding me hostage. The house is in shambles. Oh, he just broke my NPR mug. I can't even get through a shower without him getting into something. I hate the way he makes his little fists and fucks up all my plans. I'm going to copy you and close with a love poem. So I'm so I'm so thrilled to be here today. And so we made a whole weekend of it, and came down from Boston. And I'm traveling with my lovely husband, whose birthday it is, and who loves pizza. So we've been doing like a tour of pizza slices. So I'm going to end with a poem about mozzarella. And he works for Social Security. So if you on the way out, just like pat him on the back. Be like,
Right.
Yeah, like he's a good guy. Doesn't deserve to work for the baby. So anyway, thank you again. How to make mozzarella. It is best to be in love, in the company of love, or at the very least aware that love binds. Untangle some knot, plant a garden from seed. Do not give up, even if it's September with tomatoes still green. There are paper bags full of our kind, and Honeycrisp to rally us into the better season. Don't be put off by the necessary sour. It's no more complicated than a good joke, the kind that startles you by how well it worked. It's the starter, the kiss at the door, a quick chemistry. Don't sweat which pot or what milk. Everything is reactive or non-reactive. Dinner comes down to how you tell a story. The guest who worried for the cheese, cheered when it was salty and smooth, indeed cheese, brings her best to our dining room table. On the day the phone books were delivered, she opens. See, I can go anywhere with a line like that. We could name the cows when dinner was over. Our bellies were drums, our basil confetti. A cardigan slumped on the kitchen chair. I didn't know until that night that all cheese begins as mozzarella, a humble gathering at the top of the pot, caves of flavor, sweet or pungent, of our making. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. And our next winner is Joe Weil, who was born and raised in Elizabeth, New Jersey. We attended St. Mary, the Assumption grade school and high school. For over 20 years, Weil worked on the graveyard shift at various factories, mainly at National Tool and Manufacturing in Kenilworth, New Jersey. During this time, he became involved in hosting poetry readings in both New Jersey and New York, and founded the literary magazine Black Swan Review. Weil is currently a professor in the creative writing program department at Binghamton University. His latest book is Saint World, published by Hen Press, Vendetta Books in 24. He has two other books of poetry, Painting the Christmas Trees from Chancellor's Review Press and What Remains, Nightshade Press. His work has appeared in Rattle, the Boston Review, the New York Times, Paterson Literary Review, and in many other magazines and anthologies. He's read on NPR, Pacifica Radio, as a poet featured on New Jersey PBS. I have to say about Joe Weil is that he's an amazing poet, truly amazing. His work is electric, original, exciting. I love his work. I have loved his work for a very long time. And I'm so pleased to have you back here to read, Joe, and waiting to hear this reading.
Really pleased to see your face, Maria.
What, honey?
I'm so pleased to see your face.
Well, you better be pleased
But
because
you
we'll
didn't
go.
slap me yet today, so I don't feel home down here. Or copious to not, I get it.
Anyway, Joe Weil's a wonderful poet, as you'll see in a minute.
I just want to say thank you to Maria because I was on the 12 to 8 shift, and the first time I came to a reading after I'd been running was here. I wasn't here. I was at they had it at the Silk Factory then, her reading series, and Maria welcomed me and treated me well. All right, and I came here. I was so nervous. I was shaking. I had worked at night and then came right here, and I don't think I'd be anywhere if it wasn't for what you and Laura Boss did for me. So I'm going to read. Laura, if you don't know her, was a saint. She's she never, I don't know how to say how amazing Laura was, and the worst driver that ever lived. All right, I had to pay like $3,000 a month in insurance, and she was never in a bad accident. She just had little accidents because she was a daydreamer.
She calls.
Yes, because she daydreamed, and she loved candy bars, and I loved her. So this is because I am lost. Because they asked me to write a poem for Laura Boss, and I said, my worst nightmares, somebody will do a memorial reading for me, and I'll be in a place where they make cappuccinos, and the cappuccino thing will be worrying all through it. But this is for her. Some student told me I was her favorite professor. I don't even know what a professor is. Professors scare me. I no longer put my poetry in front of editors, interns to be slaughtered, and I really don't think poems are children, though both a poem and a child can be the product of quick lusts and lumbering ego. I want to be a patch of snow you see under the darkest, filthiest viaduct, still there after a 70-degree false spring day, incongruous, beside the point, and I think I am succeeding. Someone wanted me to write a poem for Laura Boss, the poet I loved who died last April. Laura finally melted, but the juncos picked at her black dress in a dream, their plump little slate gray bodies and their pink beaks busy doing magic with the damp oak leaves. She stood up, slightly stunned, but Laura always stood up, slightly stunned, and said, "Joey, the best male poet in New Jersey." Being Irish and unable to take compliments, I told the student, "You already have an A, so shut up." And I told that to Laura. I told Laura, "I don't want to have you die a second death because I've written a bad poem." I told her I was lost, and she understood. Laura and I were both often lost. She said, "I'm dead, Joey," and that's the most lost I've ever been. And I said, "Laura, I'm a clump of snow, the last patch under a highway viaduct." And she says, "Oh, good for you, Joey. Keep it up," and vanished. What do I do with my vanished friends? Do I masterfully sew them into a poem about juncos? Laura was no junco girl. It wouldn't be right. The student was being sincere. Why can't I take a compliment? I would like to whisper thank you to Laura, blow a kiss into her empty sleeves, thank you to her black dress, to her dozen candy bars, to her kindness as fierce as a wind on some northern lake I once dreamed was where my dead mother flew to skate along the shore. No lakes or juncos for Laura. Give her a shopping bag from Bergdorf Goodman, a poem that cuts on the bias, sharp and color coordinated. Give her better, sweeter men, a moon above a diner on Route 46. Let her order the egg white omelet as she always did and talk to me all night, never one poison word for a scene so often filled with guile. Because I am lost, because I can hear nothing in the sprawl of my life, because a student was kind to me, because I am a stubborn, filthy patch of snow under the viaduct of all my losses. Let me speak my love loud enough to cut through all this traffic. So I had a weird year. It was kind of like 2 bad country songs in a row. I lost my marriage, my house, my credit rating. I ended up having to do a GoFundMe to pick up the 2011 truck. I don't know where it is, somewhere in town. I had my office get flooded. It got so bad that because I'm Irish and am used to luck is not exactly what I would say my family has. I just, after the office flooded, which was on Christmas Eve, right, at the university, and I lost about $500. I just laughed laughing my ass off. I went there and I just fell on the floor laughing. They go, Joe, you're crazy. I go, well, come on. This is just like one of those Laurel and Hardy movies where the guy thinks he's escaped the building collapsing and one little piece of brick falls and hits him on the head. I go, I love it. So, I don't know if I got a poem about this. It's going to talk about, okay. This is a poem for my kids who I miss. Both my children are developmentally disabled and autistic. But we were so long ago, a thunder so distant, you can't time it by the lightning. How many hands were we when we were little? I remember coming towards 5 fingers, letting the blue chalk drop from my palm as I told my age. My grandmother would suffer me to raise all 10 of her fingers 7 times. Love learned to add, subtract, and multiply. The sticky honey of my son's hands, his eyes full of worry, a brain left to its own mistranslated devices, unable to count. When he bites my shoulder hard, I just press him closer. Fugue state, his tiny and wild body rasping its skinny legs around me. Yeah, he hurts. His heart is broken. It could be anything, or just the fact that we've run out of honey. Having nothing to soothe him with, I pray, most sacred blood of Jesus Christ, save us and the whole world. It's always on my lips. My own heart's broken too. I tell him, your angel will come tonight and make you smile in your sleep. I tell him, we are not alone. The whole sky is around us, but we are alone. He has not had a good poop in a week. This is not lyrical poetry. Fuck not using broken heart. He comes down, falls asleep saying, Mommy and Daddy, 3 of the 10 words he can say. I am so happy when his eyes close, his breathing becomes regular. I can lie there in the dark and remember my grandmother, the feel of her hand as she made my hand do, as I made it do my will. 7 times 10 fingers. In one more hand, I will be where she was. I remember her saying, Joseph, when you wake up in the morning, all the stains from all the world come to say hello to you. I was always stained, covered in spaghetti sauce at 6 a.m., clumsy, awkward. My son is 9, and according to the experts, he's mentally 2. He knows enough to realize the dark is where love understands the wind. When he was actually 2, I made wind sounds for hours just to help him sleep. I pick up the things he's thrown in his rage. I kiss Emily's frazzled head. She's asleep. He's asleep. Claire too, and me. I'm saying, most precious blood of Jesus Christ, though my hand can no longer open. Forgive me, this tight fist around my rosary. So I'm a malpracticing Catholic. I know that sounds weird, but I got myself in trouble because what happened was after I was unhoused, I ended up at somebody's house, very nice people, but non-denominational and Trump supporters. So I didn't mention that part of my journey. And then they had to put 4 beds on top of each other, so I'm like the princess and the pig, and they were laughing. And one night, I guess I tilted one a little too much and fell, right? And hit the floor with the bed on top of me, hanging out, right? So, this poem is about not trusting anything anymore. I especially don't trust language. Being a poet, I always tell my students, you shouldn't trust language. You should always try to make it do something worth trusting, because words kill as well as heal. So this is a poem called Not Even The. There are meteorites in all our poems, whole cities and markets grown around them. Oh yes, and the sacred temples, often riddled with bullets. We write more and more poems, each with its own piece of fallen, aimless heaven. The poets have evinced the calm, detached professionalism of NPR. They sound like the BBC parsing out the latest conflict, the most fashionable war. Even our violence wears a necklace of sleep, a chipper numbness, as if we had all become the wing of some giant moth, bereft of its necessary powder, twitching against the mesh screen of a summer porch. We may weave the story of our gods around any unusual rock, or perhaps a collection of stones, sun, light ticking in them, a bomb in the marl, the anthracite ready to go off. Kaboom! our ideas made flesh to tear away flesh, to shred, to rend, to flake off the bone, to make an enemy fillet. Always the intelligence, the intricate weave apparatus of slaughter. How the fuck did we get here? What accident of gravity pulled us down? I am climbing a ladder of words. Only words, each a rung, not one rung to be trusted, not even the. So I know, that's a little weird poem. I wrote that before, the Gaza, and I just think people, as I said to this person, I got them upset because they said they were an issue voter, and they go, well, Kamala wants to kill babies when they're 2 weeks out of the womb, and I said, well, what's the difference between that and taking a kid's food and removing his mother's food stamps and killing them at age 10, or incarcerating them at fucking age 16? All right? Tell me the difference. So, as I said, I'm a malpracticing Catholic. So, all right. This poem is called, I forgot. This is for my daughter. She's 12 now, but I keep fumbling with the keys to my grief. Something inchoate, a nervous leg bouncing on a long ago bus, the sputtering curve of a smile, all that dissolves, flickers, pours itself into imminence. The hazel gaze of my daughter who says, sing, sing, sing. What, Claire? She repeats the command, sing. I sing and she says, no, sing. Until my voice is rain on a tool shed's roof, relentless, breaking. And then she sways to my broken song, hugging her own body, my voice hot with tears, face streaked with dirt, on my knees, thanking her for opening me. The space between us immeasurable, love countering nothing, solving nothing, but telling me, letting me grieve. My hand moving through this grave after grave after grave beyond all doors, nothing needed to open, myself open, pouring me down into evening, this dry dirt wet with my song. And it's weird because when your whole life collapses and you survive it, you get these, you find out who you are, you get closer to who you are. I found I was somebody that if I accidentally kicked a sock and went into a waste paper basket, I was delighted for hours. And that's probably why I survived, because there are little victories, and little accidents. A really good sandwich can save your life. Someone calling you honey for some reason can save, there's just so many different things. And this poem is called The Ambition because I never had any. I ended up a professor by accident. I was a factory worker for 20 years. I was doing poetry because I thought it was fun and because it came from a family of people who would sing and do poems at the kitchen table. And Maria brought me up there to Binghamton. And I somehow, in spite of myself, did well. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
He's a wonderful
but
teacher.
I'm not
He's
good
full
at
of it.
career. When they say, I said, you guys are so sensitive to everything, and yet you use the term branding. And don't you know the awful history of that term? I mean, I don't get it, So this is called Ambition. What was I ever ambitious about? Perhaps the pyrotechnics of sublimity. It's hard to say. I didn't go to meditation school or sit on a $500 mat and wait for myself to levitate. I knew it wasn't going to happen. My foot fell asleep too easily. I couldn't own without giggling. Even in my own ancient, now collapsing edifice of a church, I get mad at the photo ops of smiling Catholic families with smiling Catholic dogs. What if you can't smile? What if you're stuck in the middle of a 6,000-lane highway and terrified? What if Jesus only allowed dads in golf shirts to enter the kingdom of heaven? To be enlightened, I figure you have to make at least 150 thou a year. I don't want to be that enlightened. I wouldn't mind the money. Today at Eucharistic adoration, my gut kept growling. It growls at Mass. It growls at adoration. It growls in my class, makes wheezing noises. I have extremely vocal gut bacteria. Perhaps my gut is having some sort of spiritual revival. I don't know. It has the gift of tongues. The two other folks in front of the Eucharist were kind enough not to turn around while my stomach imitated the tuba singers. My prayer was a simple, "Hey there." I said it softly between growls. I said it loudly in my head, imagining a crater beneath my shoes, a grand echo chamber. I said it overdubbed 1,000 times, like Les Paul recording How High the Moon. I rested in a not too uncomfortable chair, stared at the monstrance until the monstrance stared back at me. Purgatory is only the bardo. The bardo is only purgatory. And this world, I was told, was important. This world, promised with the right publications, seemed further and further away. I forgot to bring my cell phone, and when I came out of the chapel, it was almost dark, the sky presenting those sort of colors a really earnest art student with a decent set of paints can reproduce. As for me, I was no wiser, no happier, no more understanding of the divine order, but 3 hours had gone by, and I felt a little lighter, a little more part of my own footsteps. There was a girl, Rita Hockenberry, who died when I was in 3rd grade. While I was sitting in adoration, I imagined she learned I had a mass set in her memory. I closed my eyes and saw her waving to me from the window of a house, her dark eyes just as I remembered. I was in love with her. She peeled the Elmer's glue from my hands. I waved back. 55 years collapsed. She ran between parked cars one blustery fall day, going to the corner store for her grandma, and was hit by a truck, lingered in a coma for 3 days, died just before Thanksgiving, not quite making it to 8. The top song at the time was "The Rain, the Park, and Other Things" by the Cowsills. Every couple of years, I hear it and think of her. Rita, I am not ambitious. But for 56 years, I've kept you in mind. I can close my eyes and see you. Remember that one girl said your hands were dirty. Another claimed you smelled. Your father was only 18 when you were born, a kid himself. Maybe it was rough for you. I looked it up. No mention of your mom. She had split. Your dad was dead at only 53. It must have been rough for him too after you left. Who knows? They never mentioned your mom. Only your grandmother. That year in '67, The Grinch Stole Christmas. To Sir with Love was the top song of the year. San Fran had its summer of love. I close my eyes and see you in St. Mary's school uniform, your long, straight black hair flying as you run. What have I done with the 56 years you were never given? I think I've wasted them. I'm sorry, Rita. Some would say I'm morbid, but how fiercely I hold on to you, how much I want you to know I don't forget. My hand reaching out to tag you in, but you're always too fast. I remember a line from Joyce, and all around our loneliness, the wind keeps whistling merrily. I remember a line from Christ. I say to you, little girl, Talitha cum, arise. Yeah, I try to tell my students that, careers are important, all that stuff's important, but in the end, you're just going to be thinking of first and last things. If you get lucky, you're going to be 97 years old and somebody's going to be rolling you over in a bed to avoid bed sores. Or if you're not lucky, you're going to get a tumor like one of my students did at 29. And so we need to see each other as our goals, because if we see these things that people keep saying will make us happy, we're just going to perpetuate the bullshit we have out there. So I'll do one more poem. I don't know what to do. I was very moved by this reading tonight, today, and very glad to be in New Jersey. I mean, maybe I'll read this poem because there is so much I love in life. I used to make my students write 100 things they like better than poetry. And they would have to be really detailed about it. Like not just pizza, but the kind of pizza. And they didn't know it, but I was teaching them poetry that way. I was teaching them that you gotta remember what it was like when you turned 12 and for the first time your armpits smelled and you couldn't help sniffing them a little bit. You gotta remember things because poets quarry things like that. And, so there's so much I love in life. Though you can't begin a poem that way, unless you're posting it on Facebook. And then there's so much I love in life, such as breaking the fourth wall, or seeing an orchid oriole, or the translucent claw of a half-eaten crayfish, the sun breaking through a thick cover of dark-bellied cumuli to make the craw's body shine at my boot here. There, a crayfish caught in the paws of a raccoon who, for whatever reason, left half the meal to decay. Down here at the river, where things are always real, where I catch nothing all day but snags and talk to myself, discussing the possible ways in which I can't possibly matter. Must I matter? The young poets go running after the scent of something, a pulse, which is not a scent. They've been taught to run after. Crayfish, you matter to me. Your claw a wonder, your stolid eyes no longer seeing, the clever raccoon who got you in some nearby tree, sleeping it off, sleeping away the afternoon. I think I want to be left on a rocky shore like you, but who would see me? And you are so magnificent, even though there's only part of you left. Sometimes I think there's only part of me left, too. And that cloud up there, it's shaped a bit like a raccoon or the head of a raccoon. Its paws dipping a crayfish in the river, since raccoons, like someone I once loved, dip everything in water before they eat it. Who knows? I may be getting dipped even now as we speak. Who is we? Not sure, but I was feeling lonely, so I added a throng. The night will soon come, and the raccoon will lumber from the tree and see the sense, the pulse of what it dips. There is so much I love in life. The forsythia now leafing, the magnolia fully leaf, the rocks that make me wobble a bit as I crawl down them, my old body bending to touch a crayfish claw. The wind strong, my face getting pelted by catkins as I climb. This steep rock bank, almost falling backward, almost cracking my head, but not this time. My car only 100 yards away, covered in the soft yellow pollen of oak. So much I love beyond anything that supposedly matters. Thank you.
Thank you all. What a wonderful reading and what strong poems and wonderful poets. And I do have very good taste. I picked very good people, don't I? And I'm half in tears here, and it's quite wonderful. I do want to give people a chance to read in the open reading. Only Francis Lombardi, come on. I want to hear you read your poem. Anybody else want to read in the open? Come on, Fran, what are you doing?
I'll read something that I wrote for the undocumented or targeted.
Okay, get up here.
I'll be quick. Thank you all that read. I really enjoyed your work very, very much. It's delightful, or more than delightful. It's not the right adjective.
Lower that microphone. You're
All
not.
right. Well, thanks so much for giving me some voice. My little poem is called Letter to the Undocumented People in My Country. First, I want to apologize for what you're going through. The man in the White House has made you his #1 enemy. After all you've done, working on our farms, meatpacking plants, and all the other places you've endured, you're now on the wanted list. I'm sorry that you have to hide, afraid to send your American children to school, or even to make a doctor's appointment, afraid of being locked up. A nightmare, I know, none unlike the one in Germany, when another man, intoxicated with his power, rounded people up. My country has failed us both. I'm not saying she was always a perfect haven, but at least she had the will and capacity to give. I'm apologizing because I've known people like you, born in other countries, but choosing this one. They've been in my classrooms, they live in my neighborhood, drive the bus I ride each morning, clerk and manage the stores I shop in. They have sustained me for most of my life. I see you in them and in my ancestors too, who had chosen this country over theirs. And I feel ashamed for what's happening, for this fire raging out of control, ravaging our values to help each other, especially those in need, who have always given back more than they received, making our country a stronger and better place. Thank you.
Wonderful, Fran. Thank you, honey. I hope you'll come to some other readings. We do have the Laura Boss Narrative Poetry Award reading at the end of this month, also at 1 o'clock. But because it's Laura Boss and it's a foundation, her son is giving a reception from the Brownstone. So it's a little fancier than the reception we normally get or give. I hope you'll come to that. I think it's going to be a very interesting reading. And again, it will be the winners and the finalists will get to read. Thank you so much for being here and missing out on the protests, but in a way, poetry is a kind of protest, and these poems were superb. Thank you for being such great writers.